Hello, welcome to Voice of Our Own. I'm Allison Kinnear. Parents, we need to talk. We need to have a conversation about homeschooling, online learning, this whole situation that we find ourselves in. If you are someone who has children, who you're not putting them in school or you can't put them in school and your children are need to be learning in your home, maybe while you're working, also trying to hold down a job, this is for you, okay? We need to have a conversation. And the reason why we need to have a conversation now is because I am hearing ads, I am seeing comments in groups and in texting where people are saying, okay, what curriculum are you using? And how are we going to, maybe our teachers are going to put together packets and we're going to be able to, really teach our kids this year. And I'm hearing from my school anyway, like we're going to really ramp up curriculum so that your children won't fall behind. And I'm feeling the pressure mounting as a mother, as someone running her own business. It's like I'm feeling the pressure in myself and I'm feeling the pressure in my peer group. So we need to have a conversation. We need to talk about teaching and we need to talk about learning, because as a former educator, there are things that we need to understand and get really clear about before we dive into this school year that we're about to dive into. Okay? Number one, chances are, if you're watching this, you are not a teacher. You are not trained to be a teacher. You did not go to classes in college to become a teacher. You maybe don't have experience teaching other people's children. And even if you are a teacher, chances are you never expected to be teaching your own child, like in this kind of way. So the reason why this is important is because right now there's a lot of energy around like, what curriculum are you using? And let us just take that curriculum, and I'm going to take that curriculum and I'm going to open up my child's brain and I'm going to put that curriculum in my child's brain, and then I'm going to close it and they're going to be caught up. We need to be really careful about this fantasy because it's a fantasy. That is not necessarily how learning works. If it was that easy, then we wouldn't have such high turnover when it comes to teachers, and we would be able to fill all teaching positions because all we would need to do is find the right curriculum, open up our kids' brains, stick in the curriculum, close the brains up, and we'd be good. That is not how learning works. And if you've gone to school around education, then you know that particularly for kids, maybe 8th grade and younger, possibly 9th grade and younger, they think differently than adults do. And it's not just what you teach your kids, it's the how you teach kids. This is why teachers have to do a year of student teaching, because the how is what trips everyone up. The how is the hardest part. It's not really the content. We know how to spell cat. It's pretty easy to teach someone how to spell cat. The problem is how to hook their interest, keep them engaged, and get them motivated so that they don't just learn how to spell cat, but it sinks into their psyches and ways of being. That's the hard part. And that is why last spring, you had, like me and my husband, we had so many power struggles. My son threw down. He's in 1st grade and he's like, I'm sorry, I only write when I'm at school. Right? That was his way of hoping that school can come quicker if he makes that demand. But he's on a writing strike right now. Right? He's shut down to learning. And that is the biggest problem that we want to make sure we avoid in all of this. How do we get through this without shutting our kids down to learning? Because that is a real threat. If we shut our kids down to learning new things, that's going to have ramifications far beyond whether they remember how to spell cat or not. So this becomes so important in our when we think about this. And our kids, they are primed. If they are going to have a power struggle with anyone, it's going to be you. My kids, they're going to have a power struggle with me. They don't have power struggles with other people. They are good, obedient, peaceful little children with everyone else. But when it comes to my husband and I, power struggles are going to happen. And they're especially going to happen when mom or dad is trying to be teacher. So our goal as parents is not, we have to be careful of this. Our goal as parents is not to go, how can I be like my kid's third grade teacher? How can I become that person for my child? That's not the question. If you ask that question, if you're trying to do that, you are failing right away, right off the bat. So the question we need to ask ourselves is, what do I want my child to learn, and what's going to be the best way for my child to learn this? It's a whole different question. And so what I'm seeing, I'm on homeschooling groups now on Facebook, and there are people coming in going like, how do you make your child learn? And the homeschoolers and the unschoolers, they're just like, oh my gosh, chill out. The people who have decided to become homeschoolers were like, I was all done with the public education or the other way of doing things, which is like, I've got this curriculum, I'm going to just shove it in my kids' brains. No. The people who have been doing this for a long time have rejected that methodology. And they're like, no, I'm going to have my kids live their lives. I'm going to have them play. I'm going to expose them to lots of things. And I'm going to teach them while they're doing life. Because children are learning all the time. And if you don't believe children are learning all the time, I suggest you drop a curse word in their presence and you will hear them pick that up super fast, right? Our kids are learning all the time. And so we have to trust that our kids are learning all the time. And as long as we don't give the education over to the TV or to the tablet, then, and we actually go, we talk to our children and we find their curiosities and we find their interests and we pursue that. If you're not ready to take that approach, if that feels like way too much, which I totally get it, that feels like a lot, and if that's too mind-bending of an approach to education, then we have to find another way, which may involving other people, which I know puts everyone at risk. It's like as soon as you open up your quarantine bubble, then you've got other people you're interacting with. And so, but that's one way to ease it up, because kids are way more likely to learn from somebody who is not their parent. Like learn in the open up your brain, we're going to do this lesson, close it up again. If you can't do that way, then you're going to have to be really gentle with yourself and really gentle with your child. If you have a kid under 5th grade, they're going to work in 10-minute sprints. Think about that. Like 10 to 15 minutes. That's all they got. And that's hard because our adult brains are going really fast and going, why can't you get this? But their kid brains are coping with so much. Like, wow, this is not school. Wow, this is not my teacher. Wow, what's my mom doing? Wow, okay, what's this concept? Like, that's why it feels like pulling teeth. And that's why it can feel so painful. You remember those rainbow schedules we all printed out in March that we were going to like totally do? I printed one of those out. We have to be aware. The new rainbow schedule are these shiny curriculums that are getting pitched to parents all the time. Yes, maybe some of them work and they work beautifully for your child. But for some of you, you already can see the power struggle coming, and so can your kid. So I just want you to relieve yourself of the burden. You are not homeschooling. You are continuing to crisis teach. And for those of you who are sending your kids to school, there may come a time when your school closes down and you are back to crisis teaching. So yes, we can talk about homeschooling, But if you're going to talk about homeschooling, then really think about like, what is the purpose of education? How does my child learn best? What resources do I have available to myself? How can I create this environment so my child can actually be successful? And and the other part to this too is like, we have this fear that our kids are going to fall behind. But the fact of the matter is like, our kids they're gonna learn how to spell cat. If you are reading to them, if you have a job with a college education, your child is already set up for success. Your child will be okay. You have to trust in the resiliency. No, they may not be like a first grader or second grader pre-pandemic, but why are we comparing ourselves? Like, that comparison is going to rob you. Focus on your kid, focus on yourself, focus on your family, focus on your sanity, and do the best you can, because that's all you can do. None of us signed up for this. None of us did. If you have questions around any of this, I'm more than happy to riff on whatever you have. I'm not seeing comments at the moment that are popping up, but I hope this serves you. There is no one right way to do this. We have to let go of comparison. We have to let go of comparing ourselves to our child's teacher. We have to let go of comparing our children with other children. We have to let go of comparing ourselves to other people who have, got it figured out. Let me tell you, for those who are planners, great, plan if that helps you, but just know those plans might change. And for those of you who are just overwhelmed and wanting to have a glass of wine, like, think about the resources that you do have available. Think about what could work. And if you're at home and doing homeschooling and your child needs to write or your child needs to read, let me tell you, these teachers are just happy if the kids can produce something. So if you are assigned that a child needs to write a paper about going to the grocery store and they haven't been to a grocery store in 8 months, then have them write about finding bugs in the backyard, because that's their context. And if you have a teacher that's inflexible on that, I suggest pushing back, because we all need a lot more flexibility in our lives, especially right now. We are in uncharted territory, and we remain to be in uncharted territory. I hope this brings calm to you, and I hope just know you're doing the best you can, and that is good enough. Your children will bounce back. They'll have a harder time bouncing back if they are so turned off to learning. They will have an easier time of bouncing back if they remember this time as being a time when they were together and they felt loved and less stressed. Children don't learn well. Humans do not learn well under stress. So we have to have a lot of grace for them and a lot of grace for ourselves and a lot of grace for each other. Leave you with that. For those of you who are part of the Living and Learning VIP group, I am going to be talking about how this impacts moms and how this might impact moms more than dads, or women more than men, because this is going to hit us right in our sensitive spot. So stay tuned for that if you are a part of that. If you are not, the Living and Learning VIP group is videos like this or content. Sometimes it's handouts that for $5 a month, it gives you a little extra boost to these weekly videos. With that, I wish you a full week of living and learning. Please go easy on yourself. Please be gentle with yourself. This is not the time to freak out. I mean, you can freak out, but not the time to compare. All right, be well.